Hello, Sales Queen. Welcome back to another episode of the show. Today I am recording from my garden. So you may hear the odd bird, you might hear a passing car, you might even hear my son in the background. So please, if that happens, just bear with me and know that I'm soaking up some vitamin D and really actually enjoying the freedom while I record this episode for you. So what are we going to be covering today? Well, it's a common misconception in business that we always have to do more. We have to add more, become more, that it's always about doing more than we currently do now. And so today's episode is actually the complete opposite. I'm going to talk to you about 6 things that I had to unlearn, 6 things that I thought I needed to do, that I'd already learned how to do, that for me to scale the business and generate over 2 million in sales, I actually had to unlearn these things. Okay. So some of these things might shock you. And if you want to unpack it, you want me to do a follow-up episode, or you've just got a question that you want to ask me, you can head over to Instagram and ask me in the DMs. So let's get into the first one. The first one is corporate leadership language. So if you've been following me for a while, either on the podcast or over on my social media, you will know that my background was primarily a corporate sales director. I worked in a corporate environment. I worked my way up the corporate ladder. I started as sales administrator. I went through middle management, so supervisor, manager, area director, and finally, in the year that I left, I became UK sales director. And so there was a lot of promotions, a lot of interviews, a lot of having to talk in the boardroom, having to address my manager and management colleagues in meetings. And one of the things that went with that is the ability to talk what I now call corporate bullshit. And what I mean by that is there's things we say in corporate that we say it to be inclusive. We say it to give the impression of we. There is no I in team, that, leadership are, mucking in with their staff, with their team members, so that we feel like an inclusive unit and we move together in the business as one. Now, that's great when you're in corporate because you don't want there to be hierarchy in the corporate structure. You don't want it to feel like it's a top-down movement and that if you're not a manager, if you're not a senior leader, that you are worth less in some way. So we use this corporate language to create a sense of inclusivity. The problem with that being that when I came out of corporate and I found myself in my messaging using phrases like we. So we find in business that this feels hard, don't we? We often find that the reason we're not making progress is because of this, don't we? And so I was referring to we. And then I realized once I started really getting into biopsychology in the online space and learning what it takes to speak as an authority, to speak as an expert, which is what we have to do when we're looking for clients and trying to give our clients, our audience, the reassurance that we're the person to hire. Speaking in we language actually demotes you in their eyes. Yeah, being inclusive with your audience is the complete opposite of being an authority. You want your audience to see you as that expert, and they aren't going to do that if they think that you are on the same level, if they think that you know as much as they know. They have to see that you know more. You've learned more, you've made more mistakes, you've learned from them. And that means that you need to use I and you language, okay? So one of the things that I had to unlearn was corporate leadership language. Second thing, I had to unlearn the hiring that I'd been taught in corporate. So you might think that when you hire a team, that it's really good to have people that muck in, people that know lots of things, people that can turn their hand to lots of things. And I used to think that that was a good thing, that if somebody sat in an interview with me and they were like, if the team needs it, I'll roll my sleeves up, I'll get stuck in, I can do lots and lots of things. But have you ever heard the phrase, jack of all trades, master of none? What I had to learn in my business when I was hiring team is that I didn't want generalists. I didn't want the muck-in attitude of, well, I can just turn my hand to anything and do all the things. What I wanted was experts, specialists, people that really knew their stuff and knew how to stay in their lane, because that is what they were really good at. So if you're at the stage now of hiring team or expanding your team, and you're thinking that you want generalists, people to span across multi different roles, I would recommend that you think again and that you hire experts. Okay. Number 3, I had to learn that the best way to grow and scale in business was not to protect my role, which is what I'd been taught to do in corporate, to protect my role, to stay valuable, to be able to turn my hand to anything so that I stayed in a job. I mean, we used to make redundancies every single year. What I had to learn in my business for me to grow is that I needed to backfill my role. I needed to delegate fast. I needed to build my role, but also then get out of my role. Yeah, like I wanted to, there was a point back in, God, what year was this? 2022, 2023. And I was learning a lot. I was learning at a very, very fast pace, new things, new systems, new skills. And what I learned was that once I'd learned them, once I'd mastered them, I needed to then hand them off to somebody else, somebody that was skilled at that thing. I wanted to know enough to know that I understood what it was I was asking them to do, but also that for me to scale, I needed to get out of my own way, get out of my own role. Okay. So I had to learn that turning my hand to anything was not going to serve me as I was scaling. So that's number 3. Number 4 is that not all clients, and when I say clients, I mean money as well. Not all clients, not all money is good. Okay. Sometimes we've got to learn to turn down the odd client, walk away from the money. Alignment is way more important. Now, it's going to depend what stage in business you're at right now, whether you agree with me or not. If you're in the growth phase, yeah, or even in the messy middle, you might think all clients are good clients, all money is good money, say yes to all of it. But actually, there is a point in business where you realize that some clients you need to turn down. If your energy, your personality, your style is not a good fit, you're not in full alignment, then walk away. Okay, walk away, because there's nothing worse than you dialing into a call to support a client whose energy doesn't light you up. Yeah, I've actually supported a particular coach has come into mind, but this has happened a few times where they've said, Rach, I don't know why I took this person on. The red flags were there on the sales call, but I needed the clients. I said yes. I kind of knew in the pit of my tummy that it should have been a no, but I said yes because I needed the money. And now how do I get out of this relationship? Okay. Now, if you are in a place where you want to offboard a client, it's not the end of the world. It's sometimes a tough conversation, but you'll feel all the better for it. And maybe, just maybe, they will too. Okay. So if you are feeling out of alignment, it's okay. It's normal. I see it as a bit of a rite of passage of business. Yeah. That when you have had that, I'm sorry, but we're not a good fit anymore conversation, suddenly you feel more grown up as a leader. I know it's hard, but trust me, sometimes it's for the best. So that's number 4. Number 5, I had to unlearn that I should be giving all my energy all of the time. In my corporate career, I was working 80 plus hours a week. I would leave my house at 4 a.m. So in the middle of winter, I was pitch black. It was awful. I'd leave my house at 4. I'd have a taxi come pick me up, take me to the airport. I'd fly up to Manchester from where I live down in Devon. And the minute I got there, same driver would pick me up at Manchester Airport, take me to the office. I'd go straight into Monday morning meetings. And sometimes I had a case with me that was the size of case that you would take on a 2-week family holiday. I took so much stuff with me because I never really knew when I was going to go home. Some days I'd be home by Wednesday. Other days I might have to stay an extra night. Some days I'd leave on Monday morning and not get home until Friday night. And so I was giving all of my energy. Early morning meetings, evening meetings. Shall we meet in the bar for drinks? Yeah. Should we go for a meal? Yeah. Should we stay out till 2 a.m? Well, yeah, but we've got a 6 a.m. breakfast meeting. That's all right. We can handle it. It was full on. And so I learned that to do well in my corporate career, I had to give all of my energy. And now in my business, I'm in my 10th year now, I've had to learn that actually I don't want to give all my energy. My energy is not what I'm selling, even though 95% of the women that come and work with me say, They chose me for my energy, for my frequency, for my vibe. What I actually have learned that I need to do is conserve my energy, to maintain my energy so that I can show up in the best possible way when it matters most. Because if I was giving all of my energy 24 hours a day, pretty much like I used to in corporate, I wouldn't be able to hold such precious space for my clients. I wouldn't be able to sit on calls with 8, 10, sometimes 12 women and hold space while they're having a wobble. I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to hold some of the tough conversations. I wouldn't be able to support my team because I would be energy depleted. Yeah. And so right now, I want you to really ask yourself, how much of you are you giving? And are you giving so much of you that it's at the cost of something else? Are you giving so much energy to your team, to projects, to your clients? Are you giving so much of you that there's nothing left? I hate saying this phrase because it's sometimes overused, but you can't pour from an empty cup. Yeah, self-care, really important. Managing and maintaining your energy is vital if you want to get great client results and transformation. Okay, that is number 5, which brings me on to the final point, which is that busy does not equal success. Being busy is not a good thing. And I used to make it mean that it was. I used to wear busyness like a badge of honor. My calendar being full meant I felt successful. And actually, now it's the complete opposite. I was a little bit of a people pleaser, like back in my corporate career, definitely people pleaser energy. I thought being needed was a good thing. People needing me made me feel worthy, valuable. And so being busy, being needed equals good things. But actually, it doesn't. Because what I now know in my business, in my 10th year, after scaling multi 5 figures, made over 2 million in sales, is the best moves are made in the silent moments. Your best decisions are not made when you're busy. Your best decisions are not made when you're surrounded by others. Your best decisions might be made on a walk or in the bath, or in a quiet moment of journaling or reflection. Being busy is not a badge of honor. Being busy does not mean that you are successful. Overloading your calendar doesn't support you in the long run. Even though when you open up your calendar and see all those Zoom calls and all those clients, it might feel for a split second that you've made it. But in the long term, if you're really here to build a company, build an empire, to scale, you need to protect your time and energy. And so having space in your calendar is going to support you the best. Okay. So they are my 6 things. I had to unlearn them because they were all things that I used to do very, very differently in my corporate career. Hope that's been enjoyable for you. Some good reflections, some good moments where you can take some learnings and some lessons from my journey in business. I will see you next week for another episode.